Okay, hi, I'm Miles O'Leary, and I did my project on investing in the new technological revolution. Basically, that boiled down to whether or not coding and computer science should be implemented in schools as a requirement. So basically, I said that yes, they should be implemented, these courses, for a variety of reasons. The three main ones being the jobs that are going to come out of this computer science industry by 2020. There's going to be a giant growth in jobs, and these jobs are high paying, so students should be able to reap the benefits of these jobs. Educationally, it helps deductive reasoning and logic and applies to all blocks of life, even if you're not in an occupation that is computer science related. And then finally, there is racial divides, social divides, and a gender divide in the field. So ethically, we need to fix that so everyone can reap the benefits of this new field. So first, the chronological thinking process that coding helps students with basically helps them use deductive reasoning, and this applies to all blocks of life, as I said. So this is John Snow, and he basically in 1854 in London solved the cholera outbreak. There was a giant outbreak of cholera, and there was no cure known at the time. So many thought that it was caused by spreading through the air. And he basically epitomizes how the coding chronological thinking process can be used and applied to life to solve problems. And he did this by first identifying what are the possible plausible sources of the disease. He said by air, by water. And then after looking through it, he graphed all the outbreaks and all the water pumps in the city. And he noticed that the center water hub, where everyone gathered and got their water, was the exact location of where all the outbreaks are starting from. And then he took this correlation and then proved it was a causation. And just basically working chronologically, piecing one piece of logic to the next, is how he solved this and saved many lives in London. So Janet Wing, VP of Research at Microsoft, agrees that it's thinking like this that coding helps, thinking step by step, and this process of thinking can help solve major problems in society, which is why we should implement them. And so this is why in coding, take it out of a real life example. This is the chronological thinking process in coding. You guys might know Scratch. It's a program designed by MIT. And basically, in order to animate what you want to animate, you have to put commands. As you can see, these are commands. And you have to tell your character what to do, like move left for 6 seconds, take 4 steps this way. And basically, by marching through that, you can ultimately achieve your goal by using logic, which is just the process. And so basically, because this process can help solve life problems that are maybe not related to computer science, just the cholera outbreak, it can also help with cooking, ingredients and creating creative recipes. So because of that, it should be implemented because it helps students educationally. And then the second reason is more jobs and a stronger economy. Basically, there's going to be a giant influx of jobs in the computer science industry. It's going to be the second biggest sector to grow behind registered nurses, and these jobs are high paying too. So as you can see here, the lowest paying job on average in the computer science field pays about $50,000 per year, compared to the median income of an American, which is $37,000. And basically, that's a really high paying job. It's higher than most other job sectors. So the jobs are high paying, and the highest paying job in this field on average is $102,000. So there's a wide range of jobs, a variety to pick from, and they're all very well paying. So that's obviously a reason students want to go into this field. And then the other reason that they want to go into this field is these jobs are growing very fast. As you can see, computer support specialist is growing 17%, which is faster than the national benchmark for jobs from other sectors. And information security analyst is growing almost 40%, which is just tremendous. So by 2020 or 2022, 647,000 jobs will be added in this field, computer science. So obviously we should implement it early so students can be prepared to go into these fields. and find interest in a variety of jobs. And so Roxanne Amati, strategist at code.org, basically they're helping to try to implement code in schools with Hour of Code initiatives and stuff like that. And she basically says that if you can code, you can have a job. You won't have trouble finding one, which just shows how dependent our economy is becoming in it. Even if you go into a field such as being a registered nurse, you have to know how to read algorithms, blood monitors, so it has benefits in other fields. And then the third reason why we should implement it in schools, the racial, social, and gender divide. Basically, coding is predominantly done by white males, as we see. So there's that racial, and then also it's also done by people that are raised in a wealthier environment. So that's an ethical reason to implement. So this is a quote from a student at Akron High School in Ohio. And basically, he's in the computer science field, and he, at his high school, in his AP computer science class, he's just noticed that it's seen as more of a masculine thing, which turns girls off from joining it, and it's also associated with being nerdy, so he notices these stereotypes are pushing kids away from the field. So here's the social divide for you. This is from M. Klassen. She wrote a PDF paper on this, and basically 31% of students under the poverty line have access to computers at home, as compared to the 90% of students that their household makes above $75,000 per year. So clearly there's a giant gap in who has computer access and thus access to code. But interestingly, 70% of all students, wealthy and poor, have access to computers at school. So if we can implement in school, everyone has equal opportunity to code, and it's a much better chance. And then if students find inspired in school, they can go to libraries and stuff like that, and there's other avenues. But basically, if we can get them to experience it early, there's a greater chance that they will pursue later. And here's the racial divide. 30,000 test takers took the AP Computer Science test, which is low, but the more important thing about this is that 3% of those test takers were African American and only 8 were Hispanic, which, as you can see, that leaves about more like 89% that were white or Asian or other races. And from the Knight Foundation, 0.5% of the executives in Silicon Valley are of African American descent. Therefore, there's high-paying jobs, and there's a great field out there that's not being equally spread to all races. So if we can, again, implement early, it gives everyone a better chance to look at it and decide whether or not they want to go into this field. And then there's a gender divide. And although this divide is smaller than the other ones, 65% of computer science jobs are male, and 35% are female, obviously then. The biggest thing here is the wage gap. For example, females own the data key entry occupation. 85% of data key entryers are female, but it's like the fields that the jobs that they do dominate are lower paying. For example, that field on average provides about $30,000 a year. And the reason many think that the computer science field is not as dominated by women is because there are a lot of stereotypes about coding that's masculine, and these begin around 8th and 11th grade. So if we can implement early, they will not have these stereotypes. If they've been coding for 5 or 6 years, by the time they reach 8th grade, these stereotypes will be gone. And they've been doing this in Estonia and England, and they've seen these stereotypes disappear completely. So if we implement early, all genders will be able to have equal opportunities. So my counter arguments. This is a limitation that many believe that it is more important to be able to speak Spanish than it is to code. Obviously students here at CC have a lot of classes per day, so it's really hard to pick, lower it down to 8. So they think that being bilingual is more important because, as you can see, the Hispanic and Latino population in the US is rising. Therefore, there's more Spanish speakers in the US, so they believe that citizens should be prepared to be able to speak Spanish because it's an important skill to communicate, whether it be for jobs, in school, or with friends. So my rebuttal to this, is that it will not be as important because as language policy says, Spanish population will not overrun the English speaker population until 2043. And that's a pretty far time to consider. The coding movement is more, the growth is happening now, and it's probably going to die out by 2020-ish, or at least plateau then. So we have to start that earlier. There's still time to do that. And Spanish speakers immigrating still might learn English. There's a good chance that they'll have to. So we can easily get by for at least 20 years with speaking English. So my conclusion. There's problem solving, educational benefits, helps with logic. There's increased jobs, and they're high paying. And it's just ethically right that everyone has a chance to reap the benefits of this new field. And that's my
Thanks, Miles. 2 questions. Your first question is, before you began your research, what information did you need? And once you found it, how did it shape your research?
Well, I read my Is Coding the New Digital Literacy? That was my stimulus article. And once I found out that it's a really good idea that coding should be implemented in school, Razneem Taja, the author, basically said that it helps with logic and thinking, so I needed other reasons. So I looked into how many jobs depend on it, because I know there are a lot of, Mark Zuckerberg is a very big, mentor for code, and Bill Gates. So I knew there's other areas and reasons that we should have it, so I just followed people like that and got their thoughts.
Great. Second question, what advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic?
I would definitely consider in the future looking into the labor statistics. I used the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. It was a very reputable source. Took stuff from the census, so it was very reliable. And it's really interesting on how the future, to see how it will predict things like the job market, schools, and how other countries are also, already implementing and how kind of falling behind. So, yeah, just the statistics are really interesting to interpret.
Nice, thank you very much.
Sorry.
And thank you to Claire for doing tech tonight.